was president.
And good morning, everybody. This is Vinny Maletti with Maletti Law, the strongest name in law. And so here we are driving into, I don't know, some place in New Jersey. I think it's called Camden. It might as well be called West Bubblefuck because it is far as hell. And I literally learned that it was so far just a couple hours ago. So after a fantastic night of sleep, with about 3 hours of sleep, less than 3 hours, 2 hours and change, we are now on the road driving for 3 hours. Yay! Anywho, the purpose of this video is not going to be too long. It's going to be very quick. I need to, and so I think it starts as, there's been moves with government agencies, right? They've been putting in more, I guess, like enforcement. They've been putting in more IRS agents. They've been putting more, agents in the street, investigators and stuff like this that have been reviewing into more claims and whatnot. So more so than not, it seems like the trend is they're finding more and more red flags with literally anything you do, these agencies. And it's really, keep in mind, these agencies, government agencies, right, like the IRS or the EPA, stuff like that, they're given budgets, they're given funding. Their whole role is to find purpose in their jobs, right? That's like their whole role, is to find a purpose in their job and purpose in their life. So they're incentivized to find issues which are filings, to find issues which are compliance, because this is how they preserve their job. This is how they preserve their job for the rest of their lives. So, keep in mind, it's not, their goal isn't necessarily to just protect anybody. Their goal is to make sure that they have a job and that they're doing what they're doing and that they serve a purpose and function in government and in governance. Okay, so just because, say, like the IRS looks into a charge, or the banking and insurance industry looks into a transaction, that doesn't necessarily mean that you've done something wrong. It's a flag, and they just investigate. And there could be a million features in between. Your last name could be the last name of somebody that was cheated, they were cheated on or whatever. I don't know. Could have had a boyfriend in the past, or you could legitimately be involved in fraud. I don't know, right? But I'm just saying is, it's not so cut and dry. Anywho, so serving that with that as a backdrop, you're starting to see more activity with agencies, whether it be state or federal, or administrative. And I just kind of wanted to take it, in this country, we have a very unusual habit of just overlapping, civil issues and criminal issues. And this third layer of government, this administrative agency stuff, that a lot of you don't realize is almost like a different layer of government, right? So the purpose of this video is just to explain how this all works, how this all ties into each other. Overall, historically you have two separate things. You have civil cases and you have criminal cases, right? So criminal is not brought by a private individual. A criminal charge is brought by the public, the people versus Vinny Maletti, the people versus Joe Rogan, the people versus Elon Musk, the people, okay? So a criminal charge is brought by the people, it's brought by the states. The federal government brings charges also. Excuse me. Oh, sorry. I haven't slept much. Anywho, so charges generally are brought by like the district attorney, the attorney general's office, stuff like that. It's not typically brought by federal agents, but it is, you've obviously heard of the FBI, you've obviously heard of the DEA, right? They bring charges too, but whatever, right? Point is, a criminal charge is brought by a public body. It's not brought by an individual. So what does this mean? This means, let's say you have some kind of, you're not paying your bank, you're intentionally not paying your mortgage, you're intentionally looking to beat up your mortgage and run away. You're not going to jail. It's not fraud. All right. Let's say you're, I don't know, let's say you have an issue with a credit card. It's not jail. It's not fraud. You are fighting with your significant other and you delete messages on your phone. It's not fraud. You're not going to jail. You're not doing anything. You're not committing a crime. You're not. Hell, you friggin' take a drug, smoke something. I don't know. You're fine. Nothing's happening to you. Like, no private individuals, no matter how much your spouse, your business partner, or a vendor, or whatever it is, no matter how much they're fighting with you, no private company is going to be able to bring a criminal charge and strip away your freedom. None. It doesn't work like this. They may go to the police and say something. They may go to the FBI and say something, but that also doesn't mean that they give a shit either. They may not care either. It may be something that just goes in and out, So that's number one. Number one is criminal charges are only brought by public entities, and only brought by the Attorney General's office, the DA's office, District Attorney's office. They're only brought by law enforcement agencies. They're not brought by anybody else. Now, civil cases are different. Anybody could bring a civil case. The Attorney General could bring a civil case. The state could bring a civil case. Your friends could bring a civil case. Your spouse, your brother, your sister, your family member, your business partner. Anybody could sue you civilly. Anyone can. It's particular. Let's look at something like New York, right? So, New York is the only court, I think, in this country that calls its entry-level court the Supreme Court, right? Every other court, I guess, is like the district court or county court. New York's the only court that calls that entry-level court the Supreme Court. Why? Because in New York, those courts are supreme in jurisdiction, meaning have all the jurisdiction. So they could bring anything they want, any allegation, blah, 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 against you in Supreme Court. But those are civil cases. Civil meaning not criminal. Okay? So these are cases where you're not going to jail, you're not going to be under arrest, you're not going to federal prison, you're not going to be held, on probation, parole. None of that's going to happen. It's a civil case, civil court. So all those that now going back to those allegations before, let's say you intentionally don't pay your mortgage. Let's say they assert fraud. Okay, civil fraud. You had an intent to deceive. You had an intent to defraud. The other side had reliance on it. You had damages. Right. That's fine. That's civil. That's fine. That's money damages, and they cure it like that. It's not losing your rights. Not losing your ability to walk around freely outside. I mean, you might because, you got no money, so you can't go nowhere. But, but for the most part, you could go to, you could walk around at the park and be fine. You could go to the park and play basketball. You can go take a walk on the beach. You're okay, and they're not restricting your movement, right? So that's different, okay? And a fraud charge in a civil case is not a fraud charge in a criminal case. They're two very different things, two very different standards. So civil is very different. Civil could be brought by anybody. It's typically not going to be brought by a public, a DA or anything. So that's pretty standard. That's usual. It won't be brought by a DA or anything. I'm sorry. I'm just really tired. I've only slept like 2 hours, but now's a great time to do this video because this has been coming in so much lately. Now, the third body of government politic I want to point to are the agencies. Agencies are this almost unconstitutional thing. They do whatever the hell they want. They could issue any regulations they want. They could issue any guidance they want. They could have any kind of hearing they want. Agencies are just psychotic. But the thing about agencies is it also shares the same general rule that agencies generally aren't bringing criminal cases. They're just not. Again, the people bring criminal cases. I guess the agencies, now that I think about it, I guess they could try you in their specialty courts, right? Like the IRS could try you in their specialty courts. The EPA could try you in their specialty courts. And, damages could be more severe, could follow a different standard, a different set. It's fine. But, again, you're not going to jail. What makes them stand out and different is that the same precedent you'll find in civil courts, the same precedent you'll find in federal courts and districts, that precedent won't matter to the agencies because the agencies are omnipotent, essentially. So, so the agencies could be treated as this separate. They can be treated as like this separate body of law, like the separate forum, the separate courtroom, the separate public administration. The agencies could be treated somewhat differently because realistically they function, they operate differently. They don't have the same rules. They don't have the same. They don't have the same guidelines. You typically have what's known as the is it the APA? The Agency Act. Is it APA? As a wrestling fan, APA typically I think of the Acolytes. I think of Farouk and Bradshaw. So that's not helpful for this phone. That's not helpful for this discussion. So, but I forgot. I think it's called the APA. For some reason, I'm not. The Administrative Procedures Act. There it is. The Administrative Procedures Act. So technically, under the Administrative Procedures Act, it's all supposed to kind of be aligned. They're all supposed to be, homogenized, but it's not. And every agency does whatever it wants. So agencies serve as this third body. Their rulings are appealable in court, which is a good thing. You could typically bring it to a court from there, but an agency is a pain in the butt. But the good news is, and the purpose of this, video is that agencies don't bring criminal cases either. So the point is, the point is, just because agencies are increasing their scrutiny, just because agencies are looking into transactions, just because they're being more active, doesn't mean you're going to jail. Fraud in a civil sense is not fraud in a criminal sense. They are two separate buckets, two entirely separate buckets. How do you know if some criminal is going to happen? Well, believe me, you'll know. You'll start noticing maybe your bank account is frozen. Maybe you can't get your checks and your direct deposits getting dinged. Maybe it sounds crazy, but another very clear way to tell is suddenly now you start getting solicitation letters in the mail for attorneys looking for work. Hey, couldn't help but notice you got charged with 7 federal convictions. So those are typically good ways to look at it. So trust me, you'll know if you're being investigated. You'll know if you're being criminally charged because a lot of weird things out of nowhere will just randomly happen in one shot, and they'll come pretty quickly. It'll be a few days. So that's the purpose of this video. The purpose of this video is just let you all know that it's civil and criminal are two entirely separate things. Only the government bodies, only public agencies are bringing criminal charges, not private interests, not private companies, not private individuals. Items like fraud and assault are different in a civil context as they are in a criminal context. It's not the same rules. It's not the same thing. Just keep that in mind. And that's it. And then just also keep in mind that there's agencies are all over the place. They might be a third layer to worry about, but not criminal. Maybe civil. Agencies suck because they give them the middle of the bite of the apple. But whatever. That we'll get to. That's when you call me to get involved with them too. But the point is, don't worry about it. It's civil is not criminal. You're not going to jail, and it's very rare that this happens. Criminal charges are not the norm in this country. Contrary to what we're seeing lately with, rights being eaten every single day. All right, well, I hope this is helpful. I'll be posting this shortly at some point, and I will be driving. If you don't hear me after this video being uploaded, I am somewhere on 95 South because my car broke down and I'm way too far from my house. Okay, everybody. Yours and Laws, love and lifts. Peace.